Everybody's trying to find that soundbite or that, one liner of what do I need to do. And the reality is that there isn't any playbook. And so you have to write your own. It's harder. It's not the fun answer to hear, but it's the truth.
Welcome to That's What I Call Marketing, the podcast where you will hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique insights. If you're enjoying That's What I Call Marketing and can rate or review an episode, it would really, really help us. It's a great way for us to continue to grow the podcast and have more and more people engaging with the content. So if you can do that, rate a review, share an episode. If there's a person you think will enjoy today's episode and you share it with them, we'd be incredibly grateful. If you'd like to get involved with That's What I Call Marketing, the 2025 sponsorship kit is available, and really excited to have brought on some new partners this year. And if you'd like to get involved with us, just drop me a note. You can find me over on LinkedIn, send me a message, and we can have a chat about working together and reaching this incredible community of marketers that tune in to That's What I Call Marketing. And on our episode today, I'm going to be diving into the world of mobile marketing with a leader who's been involved at the forefront of the industry's evolution. Today's guest is Ran Avrahamy. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at AppsFlyer, the global leader in mobile attribution and marketing analytics. He joined in 2014, and he really has played a pivotal role in transforming AppsFlyer from a startup to an industry powerhouse, helping brands navigate the complex world of mobile advertising, data privacy, and measurement. He is an entrepreneur himself. He co-founded Skringo, and when he, as he said himself, tells us in this interview, at the age of 29, he sold that company. He wasn't ready to retire, so he joined AppsFlyer. He brings in an incredible blend of innovation, strategy, and risk-taking, I guess, for want of a better word. But we talk a lot about that in today's episode, creating that culture of teams and his teams being able to kind of try things out and figure out what are the right things to do to reach their marketing community. AppsFlyer has scaled to serve thousands of businesses worldwide and is positioned as a champion for transparency and trust in digital marketing. So we're going to chat about how AppsFlyer built its brand, the challenges of marketing in this era of data privacy, the role of AI, and also how he thinks about global and local marketing, which is a fascinating insight we're going to get from Ran. So let's get straight into today's episode. Ran, thanks a million for joining me on That's What I Call Marketing. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Connor, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, listen, we'll start real quickly, maybe for anyone who doesn't know AppsFlyer. I think it's a pretty well-known brand. But you might just give the quick lowdown of what AppsFlyer is.
Yeah. So if at this point the brand isn't known, so that's I haven't done such a good job.
Fault.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So AppsFlyer is a world-leading measurement company. We help really tens of thousands of apps worldwide identify the best users, where they're coming from, what they're doing, and really how to make the best decisions on your marketing campaigns.
Yeah, and I say it is very, very well-known name. And we get into how you've made it so well-known. Give us all your secret sauce, as they say.
Nothing is off the table.
Nothing is off the table. Brilliant.
Yeah.
But as a business, when you joined AppsFlyer, it's grown massively in that period that you've been there. Maybe tell us a bit about kind of the early days of your journey with the company and kind of, I guess, what you did, and then how maybe that's different to where you're at now in terms of the size and scale of the business.
No, sure. I enjoy saying that I'm at AppsFlyer for almost 11 years, which is pretty wild when you consider CMO tenure in the world. Yeah. And I'm really lucky to say that I've been, a little bit feels like, 10, 11 different roles that I had at the company. Yeah, I really joined the first marketing person in the team back in 2014. Was a very small startup of 13 people back in the day. Yeah. The journey so far has been like a wild roller coaster. Joining early on in a company that has had and still has an insanely good product market fit is a delight for any marketer, right? Yeah. Plus, let's remember also marketing for other marketers is a beauty and a beast.
Yeah.
Not really, because on one side, the beauty side is that you get to test everything. Like, you're the target audience, right? I always say that if I had AppsFlyer for B2B, my life would be so much easier. but you get to test everything that you're doing on yourself, and you're probably, you're usually our best or worst critics. So
Yeah.
that's on one side, but on the other hand, marketers, they smell bullshit from miles away. So you can't just like market your way through your marketing strategy, because there's like no BS. So it's a
Mm.
beauty and a beast. But going back into 2014, joined really early on, amazing product market fit, did really crazy shit at the beginning. We were pretty famous for doing really experimental things. And I always remember everybody is looking for like a cookbook, like what's the playbook?
Yeah.
And there isn't one, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like everybody's trying to
Yeah.
find that soundbite or that, wine liner of what do I need to do? And the reality is that there isn't any playbook. And so you have to write your own. It's
Mm.
harder. It's not the fun answer to hear, but it's the truth. And it starts and ends with knowing you are ICP. That's it.
Mm.
That's the secret sauce for everything. Really knowing their pains, their day to day, and how you can overcome with your technology.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like that silver bullet, or whatever it is, just doesn't exist. I think that could be frustrating for people as well, can't it? Because they're like, oh, look, but what are others doing, and can we do that? And that, like, it's a good reference point. And there's lots of I love reading case studies and effectiveness case studies and all, because there is something in there. But then you have to go and take that and say, well, how's that going to work for what I'm trying to do? Because it might even be in the same category in the same country, but it's still going to be different.
Yeah, absolutely, Connor. There's nothing wrong with getting inspired and getting references.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. The best marketers do, I believe. But the difference is when you take that inspiration and say, okay, pause. That's interesting. That's an interesting angle maybe I haven't thought of before.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How does it apply to my business, my ICP, my locations that I'm targeting, my technology, my personas? So really make it your own. Never try to take, I don't know, a stunt or a campaign that worked for company X and try to do it exactly the same for your company.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's not paint by numbers. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you
Yeah.
can't just go and say, I did hear somebody say, that how could you look at all the really good ads in a certain category and kind of take the elements that work and make one for you? I'm like, I don't know. That's a jigsaw, and I don't know if the pieces, if the pieces would fit. Do you know what I mean? Into your jigsaw.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. But there's a challenge right now. And the challenge with the world of AI, I'm sure we're going to talk about this
Oh
further,
yeah.
but as long as the barrier of entry into content creation, copywriting, any type of creative work is getting lower, right? Everybody can do that.
Mm.
And that's one of the wonderful things about generative AI. The world and the internet will be filled with much more mediocre content, right?
Yeah.
And this is, by the way, why I think we still have there's still a lot of chance for people to be exceptional at what they do if they go
Mm.
beyond that mediocrity. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of opportunities to take creative concept into market in a much smarter way. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, we definitely will talk a bit more about AI,
Yeah, it's
but
2025 and we're talking marketing, so I guess we have to.
yeah, it has to be there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But go back to, you said there that worked on a lot of kind of experimental, crazy shit. I'd love to hear about some of that, because and how I'm interested as well, because like it's such a small company. You said, what was it, 13 people when you
Yeah.
joined, like really small. How then did you get permission, I guess, to try crazy experimental shit when
Yeah.
like the business wouldn't have had probably budgets, I imagine, you know what I mean, to kind of say, oh yeah, let's just try things and we're okay with failure. That's obviously, I'd love to hear a bit about kind of that experience and some of the stuff that you did.
Yeah. I think it only takes two main things to get it done. One is constraints. I love constraints. I think constraints
Okay.
push our boundaries, like push us to be much better, not get comfortable in our seat and what we do, and then again doing the same playbook over and over again. And we
Yeah.
had, like, as an early stage startups, you have nothing but constraints, right?
No people, no money.
Yeah, you just got to do it. You just got to make it work. And again, constraints also, there's much less bureaucracy and less
Mm,
people at the table, less people that you need to get like buy-ins and different, and you just
yeah.
experiment. And now on top of that, you have constraints, and you have nothing to lose. You have really
Yeah.
nothing to lose when you're the underdog. And I was lucky enough to witness, or still witnessing, this journey from an underdog to a market leader. And when you're an underdog, you have nothing to lose. And it's something that again, it's like the combination of constraints and nothing to lose is just a must have at the beginning. And it's a mindset thing. You're totally right when you said, I think, make mistakes. It's fine.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mindset that here we're trying to embody in the company's culture from day one, that making mistakes is the only way of growing. Right. So
Yeah.
so that's one. And the second component is trust, from mainly from your partners, from your CEO. And
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to have my CEO, Warren, really just, going with my crazy shit ideas. And I hope it worked. But that's not also very trivial. That's not always very trivial. Getting a CEO, for example, as a marketing lead, that's in your head, that you're speaking the same language, that sometimes you don't really even need to speak to each other in order to understand each other. And it's like any good relationship with any partner you have in life, is having that trust. And I was lucky
Yeah.
enough to have that at the beginning.
And that is amazing. Have you managed to maintain that spirit as the company has grown? Right. So,
Mm.
like, for context, how many people are in marketing now?
About 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is are some of those principles and philosophies, because, like, as you get bigger and as you scale, and as you even say it yourself, there's more people who you need to navigate and, are interested and all that kind of stuff. Have you managed to keep that kind of mindset of, well, we got to
But
try stuff?
I hope so. I want to believe so. Probably the
Yeah.
people you need to ask are the people on the team and not myself. But I want to believe so. And it's interesting. I had a meeting with a team member a couple of weeks ago, who was with us for almost 10 years. Like, it was one of my first hires, still with us, which, by the way, is a great testament of a good team, that people stay very, very
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
And we discussed, like, it's nostalgia and like romance of the oh, it used to be so much fun, and we used to
Yeah. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope. It's a very dangerous thing to have. But one of the insights we had is, like, you know what? It's crazy how the same core components of culture that we had at the beginning, of a group of 20 or 30 or 50 people in the company, still remains the same today. Now, again, a lot
Mm.
of things are different. It's very wrong, in my opinion, to try to compare. Never compare, because it's
Mm.
not the same. I'm not the same person. I just got
Yes.
married
Yeah.
with no kids when I joined the company. I am a father of 3 right now, so nothing is comparable.
Yeah.
But how do we take specific elements of core cultural elements and kept them to date? That's probably one of the biggest secret sauce that we have to become a successful company.
Yeah. And it's hard, and that's kind of interesting as well, is knowing what are the core components and what are the things that it's okay to let go because the company is different,
Hmm.
like, and that's, do you know what I mean? That's a real skill of kind of the leadership team to figure that out as well.
And look, don't get me wrong, we've done a shitload of mistakes, a ton of mistakes. And again, that's completely fine, because sometimes in one of my frameworks of decision making is around variance versus invariance, or mistakes, or decisions that you need to make, that making a mistake in those decisions is something that you can change, or something that you can change. And we, as human beings, as marketers, as leaders, we have to take hundreds of decisions a day, right?
Hmm.
And we can't allow ourselves to think and think and think about those decisions every single time. And we got to have this framework of quick decision making. And I try very hard to differentiate between decisions that I have to make that are reversible and irreversible. And the one that are reversible, I just let it go, make quick
Right.
decisions. Worst case, I make a mistake, or the team makes a mistake, and that's fine, because they're reversible. And the one that are very critical, that you really can't make a mistake. So this is where maybe I sit down, I think with myself, with other people, and give it a little bit more time.
It's a really interesting way of looking at it, by thinking about, yeah, what's not reversible. What would be an example of something that you've had to think over that's not reversible?
A lot of decisions around people sometimes are not
Okay.
reversible, right? When you are, I don't know, when you're adding a person into your leadership team, but it's maybe temporarily, right? And you because you want to check it out, or you want to
Hmm.
decide if you want to hire someone else. It's a decision that all of us have to make on a daily basis. But this is an irreversible one because you set expectation to a person, you move that person into a specific area that maybe you think he or she thinks that they're getting into, and that's irreversible. And I've done this mistakes in the past, and I really, really think hard before I do them again right now. So
Right.
everything related
Yeah.
to people, and again, people and emotion and mainly expectation setting, these are irreversible. Reversible, 90% of the things are reversible. Budget
Mm.
decisions, campaign decision, copywriting decision, PR decision, positioning, all of them are replaceable. Or yeah.
And are there any of the mistakes that you've made that stand out, like in your memory? Because I think we've all had those where you're just like, oh my God, like, yeah, I did not expect that to fail as
Mm.
badly as it did.
It's funny you're asking. One of my favorite interview questions, or anything question about a statement that I like to ask in an interview is I'm asking the candidate, can you please, what is it? Can you please describe your most glorious marketing fuck up? But something because this tells me a lot about the individual. He or she celebrates their mistakes,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah. Yeah.
think it's, as marketers in 2025, it's one of our core components is really to be able to make mistakes and to acknowledge them. And I have my share of glorious fuck ups. I can tell you something very quickly. One into like 8 years ago, we made this. It's a long story. I'll make it short. We took we took a food truck in a conference, like an industry conference, and we wanted to take over the lunch because the insight, I love to start thinking from marketing insight and then go backwards. The insight was that at usual events, trade shows, there's like shitty lunch, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
lunch box and nobody likes it. It's like cold and it's not nice. So we decided to take over with a food truck, with like barbecue truck, something very cool. And we said, you know what? Maybe should we get a permit? No, we don't need to get a permit. We'll start a small startup. So we put the food truck at the entrance of the conference. Then the police came. They had to take us down. I was sure that
Oh,
I'm going to get arrested, but it's a memory, and I learned a
yeah.
lot from it. And it's a good story still to tell. And what is
It,
life beyond good stories or memories that you
yeah,
make?
exactly. And it's so funny as you're saying that. I was like, God, maybe if the police did come, you could like just pured the shit out of it. Like, you know what I mean? And like, yeah,
So
it's
I'll tell you
there's
something.
always
I'll
an
tell you
angle.
something super funky. I used to be a big gamer guy. Love Grand Theft Auto, like most of us. And at some point, like the police was escorting. I hopped under the food truck, and the police was escorting us to an area where it's like okay to put the food truck. And at some point, and I was scared shitless. I was like Israeli guy. I was in the States. I was in San Francisco. I was sure I'm gonna go to jail. And at some point, there was a helicopter in the sky, and I was sure that like I'm a 5-star GTA mode, that like the helicopter is gonna get me, and I got all like crazy. That of course it was not related to us, the helicopter, but yeah, that could have taken a weird turn.
A whole, a whole different turn. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's amazing. I think you're right. Like, I mean, having those things that stick in your memory, and and it is interesting because you kind of, I can almost sense the fun you were having. With the
so much
idea, like
fun.
the food truck, and yeah, 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 yeah.
Really those moments or meetings when I don't know, I have a huge whiteboard. I love whiteboards. I love
Okay.
creative brainstorm. The best part of our job, in my opinion, is really coming up with those from insights into creative, into strategies, and into execution. That's the
Yeah.
most fun part of the job.
But going from, as you called it, underdog to leader,
Yeah,
and you'll have all those things in the way, kind of the fun stuff. But that also changes then, I think, the dynamic of everything, right? Like how you behave in the market to the
yeah.
market. You then, even as a leader, how you've probably had to evolve and behave. But maybe starting with kind of that getting to that kind of leadership position. Are there any things along the way that you did that were kind of, you look back on now maybe as moments that shifted the gear, that really
Mm.
accelerated the growth?
Absolutely. Look, I think a company's life cycle is built by specific milestones, right? You have those
Mm.
moments in time. Maybe, by the way, at that time you're not aware of them, that these are milestones,
Yeah, yeah.
but looking back, these are milestones. One of them for us was really at the beginning, strategically, not necessarily marketing wise. We decided, most like foreign non-American companies, the first market that they penetrate into is the US. We are a mobile first company, and our audience is like mobile first companies. So we decided actually to take a different route, and we started with the East. We started actually with China, with more developing countries versus the more mature countries.
Okay.
China, Brazil, India, really, really at the beginning. And it's very weird for an early stage company to start like boots on the ground, go to market in different locations, direct, not via resellers, which is also different. And in retrospect, it was one of the best decisions we made as a company because, again,
Right.
it coming from a strategic insight. And the strategic insight was that mobile growth was, even like population, mobile penetration was soaring in those countries. And this is
Yeah.
where our market was at the beginning. So we capitalized on that market very early on. And we have some customers 10, 11 years with us in those
Yeah.
countries today. And it was such an important decision in retrospect. So that's one milestone.
Yeah.
If you would like to reach an engaged community of marketing leaders, get in touch with That's What I Call Marketing to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
Another milestone is around everything happened in June 2020, right? So everybody's in the middle of COVID, and the mobile world is changing in a day. Apple is
Right.
coming up with its ATT framework and the announcement of iOS 14, and everything changes. And all of a sudden, we as a market leader back then, we have our responsibilities even greater. I remember, and again, everybody was at home. It was peak COVID.
Mm.
Um, and our customers don't really understand what's going on, and they come to us because you don't go to Apple or to Google to get
Yeah, yeah.
answers, and they come to us, and we're becoming. I really remember like us as like a call center for trying to get insight. So one of the Spike's Lee is like Spider-Man, and with great power comes great responsibility. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
one of the most important things that you need to identify as a market leader, that you have a lot of responsibility. Now, you still can do a lot of crazy shit, and that's totally fine. But
Yeah.
as long as you respect and understand the level of responsibility that you have, because again, that's part of your DNA. In our DNA, it's still we are the most responsible that we can be, because we know that our customers entrust us with the most important asset. But it's still okay to have fun, and
Right.
to be vibrant, and to be different, and to enjoy what you do.
Yeah, yeah. And that happens as well, doesn't it? Companies go into being incredibly boring. With that, with responsibility, and you can see it a lot. It's like, well, now we need to just real boring and serious. So I love that you can actually keep that, you know, I don't know, like zest almost for what you do, and just interested then in kind of you talked about kind of
Yeah,
going to the east, and then you had people on local marketers in markets.
yeah.
That's really interesting.
Till this day, we have 30% of our marketing team are marketers in the 20 offices or like locations that we operate in, all the way
Okay.
from Japan to Korea, China, India, Thailand, all of Europe, Berlin, UK, of course, North America, Latin America. And we have people in Brazil and Argentina and Mexico. So really local people that are boots on the ground, and together with our customer success team and our sales teams and our partnership team. And we're very much have a local approach to our go-to-market. Very much local
That's
approach.
really interesting because it is something that global brands or brands who become global struggle with. And
Hmm.
I've talked to a lot of people. I've talked to Jessica Martin when she was CMO of Calendly, and I've talked to like so many marketers and
Hmm.
trying to like how you figure out the right balance and the right mix. And it kind of sounds like and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys went with the almost local first versus building a global and then later on thinking, oh, if we had a few people in market,
Yeah.
that might
It's
be useful.
it's such an interesting dilemma.
Isn't it?
I
Yeah.
I I would say that we we took the approach of listening to the market, and I think And it's like a roller coaster, right? We started off with letting go, right? Like, hey, local team, I'm gonna give you the guidelines, very
Yeah.
high level guidelines, or this is the North Star. Go get it. This is the North Star. I'm gonna step aside because I might know marketing. I think I know, maybe.
Hmm.
I know AppsFlyer very well, but you know China. I will never
Yeah.
be able to know China as you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go get it. And I'm gonna be here to help you and guide you and come with a 10 pounds hammer to break everything you need me to break in order for you to move fast. So at the beginning, we started with this mindset. And it worked for us, right? It might not work for other people. Again, as we talked at the beginning. But
Yeah. Yeah.
later on, when you become mature and you understand that you need processes in place. And again, processes are not a bad thing. Are not like corporate America. You got to have a process, go through 10 different people to get something done. Processes, they come to help you get something done more efficiently. So you put some processes in place and more guidelines in place, but still you give that level of autonomy because that's a must. Like, and we still do
Yeah.
that. So we change throughout our journey in identifying what is that right amount of volume of enforcement that you need. Because,
Yes.
and this is maybe one of my most important dilemmas on my day to day. And this is the dilemma or the trade off between, let's call it, hyper personalization or localization, right? Versus scalability and efficiency.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the most pressing and ongoing dilemmas I have as a CMO. And again, there's no right answer. There is always right for right now for the right situation. And I'll give an example. We go big on localization. As I said, we are in 20 different markets. We speak the language of our customers. And localization, which is much more than translation, localization is a
Yes.
big factor to what we do. And when I need to make a decision between, I don't know, priorities or whatnot, or budget or resources or whatever it may be, I look at the market insight because I know, for example, that in Korea, the local business that we operated is very much speaks in Korean and operates in Korean versus maybe in Germany, where we thought initially we're going to be very, very local, it's totally fine to do business in English in
Yeah.
our area.
Okay.
So this is where bottom-ups insights really, really come into place and help you make those decisions. But that trade-off, I tell you, man, this is really one of the biggest
Yeah.
things that keeps me busy.
And it almost goes back to your kind of earlier point where you're talking about the CEO, but the trust piece as well is so huge in it because I've seen it where centralized global marketing teams, there's an element of wanting to keep some sort of control,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that might be the wrong word, but I think it is some sort of
It is.
control.
It is. It is.
And because they're worried that if they give it to the local market
Brand
will break it.
consistency.
Yeah.
Exactly. How do you? And
Yeah.
again, and one of my roles, sometimes a little bit like a therapist, is no, but for real, is really
Yeah.
I get both of them. I get my China marketing leader that is with us for amazing Susie is with us for what 6-7 years now. She knows China best, right?
Yeah.
And when she has a concept for a VIP event that we're doing in south of China, she knows exactly the nuances that I will never understand. That this is the year of the snake,
Yeah.
and there's the history of the green snake and the white snake, and I'm like, I don't know. And
Yeah.
then our VP brand that wants to keep the consistency and the top-down messages, and I get both of them. They're both right,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
eventually
Yeah.
you're a little bit of a therapist and trying to mitigate what is best for the current situation. And this is,
Yeah.
and again, you got to have the best team around you. And I'm very fortunate to have that. Very mature, very open type of conversations and getting it done. But really, this is, you're stepping into my day to day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, and it's when you build, I found, when you build the relationships with people and people know that, and I think, look, I have a view, I think people's intentions are good. Like that's how my starting point is people's
Always
intentions are good. No
same.
one's coming in to make your life difficult.
Optimism is
And then,
contagious, man.
yeah. And you just have like that belief. I think it helps. And then you can, like, I remember we had very difficult conversation around creative work for India.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know nothing about India. I've never even been. I remember I spoke to someone at the podcast and they were like, shame on you.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
recommend it.
But it's but we wanted to do something that was very different to the global work that the brand was doing at that
Mm-hmm.
time,
Mm-hmm.
but wasn't going to be a total departure. You know what I mean? Like people would know it was from, it was Indeed who I was with at the time. People would know it was from that brand. And
Yeah.
there was just really interesting conversations. We wanted humor, and like the brand wasn't humorous. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, but we had those great conversations about it. And we really had great, like with Russell, the creative director, Jennifer Warren, who's the brand lead. And
How did it end up?
they, we went with the humorous
Mm-hmm.
work, and we won a ton of awards, and it was really effective. Like we
Yeah.
won effectiveness awards, like
Yeah.
Effie's and everything. So it was really, really effective work. And
I'll tell you what, Connor, it's a little bit about how serious do you take yourself as a brand?
mm,
And I think again, we take ourselves and our work and our customers and again the assets that they let us help them with
yeah,
extremely seriously. But we don't take ourselves too serious. And I think this
yeah,
is
yeah,
eventually the sweet spot. I'll give an example. Here in Israel, we do a lot of employer brand work, right? And we worked, what was it, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago? We worked with this up and coming comedian, pretty
yeah,
famous, like started getting famous in Israel. And he was this, like he appeared in a couple of like mainstream TV shows, and he started getting very much well known, and he became this brand ambassador for one of the biggest brands in Israel. And he hated it because they didn't let him to be himself, and they tried to enforce a lot of brand rules and guidelines on him. It's like, no, they're creative. And then we worked together, and he came with this insane idea that people would like at the table were not comfortable with. And we said, you know what? You're the talent. Probably what you do so far, you do best.
yeah,
Go.
yeah,
And not only he enjoyed doing it, and he worked his ass off much more than we
yeah,
negotiated to do, because we gave him, or we allowed him, we enabled him to be himself. The output, Colin, was incredible. Again, we won awards. The output was incredible because again, we let the talent do their thing, and we didn't take ourselves too seriously.
yeah. I think that's a great distinction. You can be serious without taking yourselves too seriously. Isn't
It's
that,
not. It's not
really?
either
Yeah,
or. It's not either or.
yeah,
You can do both.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
when you talk about like big enterprise, like old legacy enterprise companies, immediately when you think about color scheme and like look and feel, you think about gray and blue and all
blue.
those like
Yeah,
very, old stuff, user experience. And it doesn't have to be that way. It
yeah,
really
yeah.
doesn't. You can still be cool and be an enterprise, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, yeah, I know it's possible. It is
Yeah,
possible,
it
people.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Um,
Highly
Chris,
recommend.
tell me a bit about your marketing mix. Like what are the what, I guess, kind of marketing are you and the team doing? How do you kind of split it up?
Yeah, so it changed dramatically over the years, obviously, especially look, we are a very in-person type of company. We're a very
Okay.
personal type of company. And events marketing was actually one of our, as a marketing department, was one of our biggest moats from day one. Even the reference of the glorious fuck up gave was an
Yeah.
events marketing stunt. And again, that comes from me personally. That's what I've done before. That's what I love doing, building communities and event marketing. And this is also a lot of the company's dynamic and DNA. And then COVID came and
Mm,
fucked us all up. And it was like, that's it, you're done. You don't have that unique distinctiveness that you have in this world is over. And it was a couple of very tough months of getting grip. And do we go online? Do we think about things alternatively, which we eventually ended up doing? But of course, up to now, it really changed into something much more realistic. First of all, we look at things from an objective perspective. And we have,
right.
pretty straightforward set of objectives, starting from brand awareness to new logo pipeline creation, or one of the biggest sources of pipeline creation in the company, all the way to how do we eventually, as a marketing organization, again, this is what I think a B2B marketing organization should be focused on. How do we make sales better and easier? That's eventually
Mm,
what I think that the focus of a marketing team is. And so everything from pipeline acceleration. So how do we help deals go through the pipeline or closer to win rate? And eventually, how do we support our current business? So these are our objectives. No, the mix is pretty diverse because we go both enterprise marketing, so everything related to hit list accounts and account-based marketing and all of that. And on the other side, we also have a PLG motion. So a mix of
Okay.
both. Multiply that by 44 markets in 20 different locations. Multiply that by more product lines that we're developing at times with multiple persona. It's getting pretty chaotic.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but actually, we work so well in this world of organized chaos. So it's a magic that happens, really. But the mix itself is anywhere between online to field, a lot of education we put a focus
Right.
on. Our sweet spot is this intersection between data and storytelling. We sit on
Yeah.
a pile of insights, which we share with the world in different areas. This was actually from day one. So we pretty much do it all and we experiment with it all as much as possible.
And again, back to the global thing, it's just how those things will need to be a little bit different, and like it's a fascinating
Yeah.
challenge to
Yeah.
have, and you
Again,
must
goes back
learn a
to
lot.
that
Yeah.
that trade-off. How do
Yeah.
you, I'll give it one example, quick example. We have a line of events, owned and operated events called MAMA. Fun story. MAMA stands for Mobile Attribution Marketing Analytics, but it's the original name came actually from, we were young and foolish and had a late night creative session with music on, and Bohemian Rhapsody played by Queen, and he started singing chorus MAMA, and this is actually where the brand name came from.
Wow.
And it's a series of events owned and operated by us with a lot of partners that we do this year in 14 places, 14 locations across the world. We just had one in San Francisco last month and in Goa in India last week. And that distinction about how we create this, and it's a lot of effort, right? Running 14 owned and operated events is a lot of effort.
Mm.
How do, on one side, we make it scalable and efficient in terms of content and the processes and funnel management and invitees and sponsorships and all
Yeah.
of that to
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
efficient? Because otherwise we can't. But still keep it local flavor, local speakers, local insights, local teams. And that's something that we always fight with, and in a
Yeah.
very positive way. And the outcome is great so far.
Yeah. It's interesting. And then I guess one of the other things is, I know we're nearly at time, but I do want to get back to our AI question. But one of the other
Yeah.
things is then how you can pull interesting learnings from other markets and apply them, because I found that as well, that you could do something somewhere and go, wow, that's universal. Like we could roll this out in so many different places, and capturing those insights is amazing.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, it starts with culture of, again,
Yeah.
learning and sharing. Because one of my core guidelines to the team is guys, if you identify an idea or an insight, if you think it's relevant for at least one more person, just share it.
Mm.
Just share that
Yeah.
concept, share that idea. Now, with the work of AI, we do some insane stuff with our enterprise ChatGPT account, and we build tons of custom GPTs based on specific use case, and people start sharing knowledge with each other. And it's a fascinating world. And I'm very proud to see that our marketing team is very much advanced in this world. And I think we're beyond that phase of people fearing for their jobs, because they understand that it's not going to replace people. It will replace
Yeah.
people that don't
Know how to use it.
go through or know how to use it. It's an adapt or die moment. And
Yeah.
people adapt rather quickly, which I'm very proud of. But we do a lot of use cases with AI, and how we can, again, as you just said, how we can share that knowledge, get those insights from one place to another, from one department to another, and really get the most out of it for the greater good.
Yeah. Yeah. And so on the kind of on AI, how are you finding its use case? I guess there's so many areas you can use it for. You can use it for scaling creative work at kind of lower levels. You can use it for strategy work. How's it being used with your team?
My mindset is to enable this to be as self-served as possible, to remove any
Right.
limitation, right? There's a lot of bureaucracies that can come up with AI, right? With security teams and data prep. And our ethos, our
Mm.
mindset is, it's the risk is higher than the reward. I'm sorry, actually the opposite. The reward is higher than the risk.
Mm.
And the
Yeah.
risk of
Yeah.
missing out is higher than the risk of making a mistake. And
Mm-hmm.
we just really try to enable people, individuals, team to go as fast as possible and as self-sufficient as possible. So we try to open everything up. We invest a lot in education. We bought the biggest, we actually built some of the most interesting tools that we have. And we bought some of the most interesting tools that there are in the market. And we just have to run super fast. Going back to that organized chaos, you have to run super fast. And it's not just those trivial things, it's not that copywriting on content strategy or creative work. You can go deep insights. You can go into competitive analysis. You can go into campaign creation and strategy. Every single element of marketing can be influenced by this.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, I use it a lot, and for all those things that you're talking about, and it's self and a friend, we often kind of say that it's like if you're working on strategy, sometimes that can be a lonely thing, but Claude is there.
Claude is there for you. Yeah,
Claude is there for me. Listen, I know we're at time, and it feels like we've just been speaking for about 5 minutes. I've really enjoyed our conversation. There's so much more I think we could talk about again, but maybe we can do this again. If you're over this side of the world, let me know, and we can catch up in person as well. I'd love that.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Ran. When we finished recording, we were just chatting for a couple more minutes, and what was really interesting, and I said this to Ran, what came across in our entire conversation, and I hadn't expected it to the degree that it did, was how that culture of risk-taking, again, I'm not sure I love that word, but I'm using it again, of risk-taking, of trying out things, figuring out what the right things to do are, has continued in the 11 years that Ran's been at AppsFlyer, and that company has grown massively. The marketing team has grown, yet they've managed to hold on to that belief and that culture that it's okay to figure out what we're doing. And as he said himself, 90% of the decisions he make are reversible, right? That's a great philosophy, I think, to have in marketing, that 90% of what we do, we can probably get, figure out a way out of it or change our approach. And so having that ability to allow your team have those risks, create that culture is really, really important. And I've certainly worked in places that have had both in sense of places that are really, in fact, the same place, I should say, different managers have had different styles. One really risk averse and one really pro taking risks. And I know which one I certainly am drawn to. So listen, that's it for this episode. That's what I call marketing. I hope you did enjoy it. If you have enjoyed it and you think somebody else would enjoy this episode, do share it with them. We get to speak to amazing CMOs all across the world, and it is fantastic to get their insights all the time. If you'd like to get involved, that's what I call marketing. Drop me a note. You can find me on LinkedIn under my own name, Conor Byrne, and I will chat to you about our sponsorship kit 2025. That's it for this episode. Subscribe and you will get notified when our next episode is out. Thanks so much for tuning in.
If you would like to reach an engaged community of marketing leaders, get in touch with That's What I Call Marketing to discuss sponsorship opportunities.